You don't wake up one day and decide to suppress your feelings. It happens slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. At first it feels practical. You stay calm instead of reacting. You hold your tears instead of crying. You swallow your anger instead of expressing it. You tell yourself you're being strong, mature, in control. But what you don't realize is that every time you push an emotion down, your brain is taking notes. Your brain is constantly adapting to how you treat your emotions. When you repeatedly suppress what you feel, your brain begins to reorganize itself around avoidance. Suppression isn't just a behavior, it becomes a pattern. And patterns, when repeated long enough, become wiring. Emotions are not random, they are biological signals. When something hurts you, your amygdala activates. When something threatens your sense of belonging, your nervous system responds. When something excites you, dopamine circuits light up. Feelings are not weaknesses, they are data. They tell your brain what matters. But when you repeatedly ignore that data, your brain learns that emotional signals are not welcome. At first, suppression feels like control. You think you're mastering your reactions, but neurologically, something else is happening. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic and regulation, starts working overtime to silence the emotional centers. You are not eliminating the emotion. You are forcing your thinking brain to constantly override your feeling brain. And that takes energy. Chronic suppression increases cognitive load. Your brain becomes busy managing what you refuse to express. That hidden effort drains mental resources. This is why people who suppress emotions often feel tired without knowing why. Their brain is running background programs all day long. Over time, the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, can become more reactive, not less. When emotions are not processed properly, they don't disappear. They accumulate. Suppressed anger doesn't dissolve. Suppressed sadness doesn't vanish. They remain stored in neural pathways, waiting for an outlet. Eventually, small triggers create disproportionate reactions. You snap over minor things. You feel overwhelmed by situations that don't seem that serious. That's not because you're dramatic. It's because your brain has been holding unprocessed emotional weight. There's another shift that happens too. When you repeatedly suppress emotions, your brain begins to reduce emotional awareness. This is called emotional blunting. At first, it protects you from pain, but gradually it also dulls joy. The same circuits that allow you to feel sadness are connected to the circuits that allow you to feel happiness. When you numb one side, you unintentionally numb the other. This is why people who suppress feelings often say, "I don't feel sad, I just feel nothing," or "I don't get excited about things anymore." It's not that life became empty, it's that their emotional range narrowed. Your brain thrives on integration, allowing emotion and logic to communicate. Suppression interrupts that communication. Instead of processing experiences fully, the brain stores incomplete emotional cycles, and incomplete cycles create tension in the nervous system. Chronic tension activates stress pathways. Cortisol levels remain slightly elevated. Your body stays in a mild fight-or-flight state. Even if you look calm on the outside, internally your system may be bracing. Over time, this affects memory. The hippocampus, which plays a key role in memory and emotional context, can become less efficient under prolonged stress. That's why people who suppress emotions often struggle to clearly understand their own past. Their experiences feel foggy, disconnected, hard to explain. Suppression also reshapes identity. When you consistently ignore what you feel, you begin to lose access to your preferences, your dislikes, your boundaries. You become skilled at functioning but disconnected from yourself. Your brain adapts to performance mode. Instead of asking, "How do I feel?" it asks, "What is expected of me?" And that shift is subtle but powerful. You may start making decisions based purely on logic, practicality, or approval. On the surface, that looks responsible, but internally something feels misaligned, because emotions are part of decision-making. They provide direction. Without them, choices feel flat. Another neurological impact of suppression is reduced emotional labeling. When children are taught to express and name feelings, neural pathways between the emotional brain and language centers strengthen. But when emotions are discouraged, don't cry. Don't be sensitive. Stop overreacting. Those pathways weaken. As adults, this can show up as difficulty identifying what you're feeling. You feel discomfort, but you can't define it. You feel tension, but you can't locate its source. Without language, emotions remain abstract and harder to process. And what cannot be processed often becomes anxiety. Anxiety is sometimes unexpressed emotion searching for release. Your brain doesn't like unresolved signals, it seeks closure. When sadness or anger isn't acknowledged, it converts into restlessness, irritability, overthinking, because the nervous system still wants resolution. Suppression also impacts relationships. Humans connect through emotional exchange, microexpressions, tone shifts, subtle vulnerability. When you suppress your feelings, you reduce emotional transparency. Others sense distance even if they don't know why. Your brain then interprets that distance as isolation. Social disconnection activates similar neural pathways as physical pain, so you may begin to feel lonely, even when surrounded by people. The irony is painful. You suppressed emotions to protect yourself, but the long-term effect can be deeper isolation. There is also a physical component. The body stores what the mind avoids. Muscle tension, headaches, digestive issues, these can sometimes be manifestations of chronic emotional suppression. The brain and body are not separate systems. They are constantly communicating. When emotional expression is unsafe, the body becomes the messenger. But here is what is powerful about the brain. It is plastic. It can change. The same way suppression reshaped your neural pathways, awareness can reshape them again. When you begin to acknowledge feelings without immediately silencing them, new circuits strengthen. The connection between your prefrontal cortex and emotional centers becomes healthier. Instead of overpowering emotion, your brain learns to regulate it. Regulation is different from suppression. Suppression says, "Don't feel this." Regulation says, "I feel this and I can handle it." That small difference changes neural chemistry. When you allow yourself to experience sadness without judgment, the emotion moves through its natural cycle. When you express anger safely, the stress response completes itself. When you name fear, your brain reduces its intensity. Studies show that labeling emotions decreases amygdala activation. Simply putting feelings into words calms the alarm system. This means healing doesn't start with dramatic breakthroughs. It starts with small acknowledgments. I'm disappointed. I feel hurt. I'm overwhelmed. These statements may seem simple, but neurologically they are powerful. Over time, emotional awareness restores balance. Joy begins to feel accessible again. Motivation returns. Clarity improves, because your brain is no longer fighting itself. Suppressing feelings changes your brain by teaching it that emotions are threats. But feeling emotions teaches your brain that experiences are survivable. And that shift is transformative. You were never weak for having emotions. You were human. Your brain was never broken. It was adapting. Suppression may have protected you in environments where expression felt unsafe. Maybe you learned early that vulnerability led to rejection. Maybe anger created conflict. Maybe sadness was ignored. Your brain did what it needed to do to maintain connection and safety. But what protected you then may be limiting you now. The brain you have today is shaped by repetition, and repetition can be redirected. The first step is awareness. The second step is permission. Permission to pause instead of pushing feelings away. Permission to sit with discomfort for a moment longer. Permission to respond instead of react. Slowly, your nervous system recalibrates. It learns that emotions are not emergencies, they are messages. And when messages are heard, they quiet naturally. You don't need to force yourself to become overly expressive overnight. Healing isn't extreme, it's consistent. It's gentle curiosity toward your inner world. Each time you choose awareness over avoidance, you are rewiring. Each time you allow yourself to feel without judgment, you are strengthening integration. Each time you speak your truth calmly, you are building new neural pathways. Suppressing feelings changes your brain, but so does courage. And maybe the most important thing to understand is this: emotions are not obstacles to logic. They are information that logic needs. When your emotional and rational brain work together, you feel aligned. Decisions feel grounded. Relationships feel authentic. Life feels more vivid. You don't become more emotional, you become more whole. If you've been suppressing feelings for years, it's not too late. The brain remains adaptable throughout life. Neuroplasticity doesn't disappear with age. Change may feel uncomfortable at first because your system is unfamiliar with openness. But unfamiliar doesn't mean unsafe. Your brain learns suppression through repetition. It can learn connection the same way. And the more you allow yourself to feel fully, without shame, without fear, the more your brain returns to balance. Because your emotions were never the problem. Ignoring them was.